A lot of you delegates might be wondering, waiting for the day that you'll get the scoop on our own youth governor, Amin Merchant. Even though he's always on the go and always on the move, we sat down with him for an in-depth interview where he gave us the scoop on his childhood, home life, plans for the future, and ultimately how youth in government has changed his life. Okay, Amin, so why don't you tell me a little bit about your childhood, maybe your upbringing, some family stuff?
My family moved around a little bit. My father was working for the United States Air Force for most of my childhood. And when he decided to move out of the Air Force world, he actually started working for the State Department. So I think that's where a lot of my political influences come from is my dad's career path when I was growing up, and even today my dad and my brother are still really active politically. So I think that's what really influenced me to even begin getting involved in government. But when he was working for the State Department, he ended up working for Defense Intelligence Agency for the United States. So he got stationed in Muscat, Oman in the Middle East, and I spent 6 years there when I was a child. And I think that really influenced me as well. And I think being immersed in Middle Eastern culture when I was younger put a very unique perspective on more recent political events happening here in the United States.
So, what are your plans as far as visiting India? How often do you think you're going to go back to your country?
I'm not really sure what my college schedule is going to look like.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited to find that out, and with that, I'll be sure to plan around going there as often as I can. I'll probably say that I'll be able to go once a year, as my family I usually do now already. So that'll probably be the same schedule that even as I get older.
I know you were a little bit younger, but do you ever miss some of the the lifestyle that you had over in India and your childhood memories and stuff like that?
Well, certainly. I think living in the Middle East, when I was living in Oman, I think culturally it was much different. Of course, I love American culture, but I find that it's swayed much more often by trends and pop culture references or pop culture things which have become popular over time. And whereas I found in the Middle East that it was much more stable, people weren't as trendy, people didn't change as often as they did, and there was a very strong family values based core in the Middle East, and I often don't find that same family values based core in the United States. I think people of course love their families, but you're not family centered here, where it's in the Middle East it's very common for people to only hang out with their brothers, sisters, cousins, extended family, cousins, and uncles and aunts, and that's all you hang out with, and that's very common practice. And I think if you look at that from the American perspective, it's pretty peculiar to think that someone would just hang out with their family. But I mean, those are some of the things that I don't know if I necessarily miss, but I definitely noticed the difference. And I think it was a little bit tough for me to make that adjustment when I came over here to switch cultures. Of course, I went to an American school over there. I've always been going through the American schooling system because my dad was working for the U.S. government, so I would just go to private American schools when I was younger. So a lot of the kids who I hung out with were just children of diplomats as well, so I've always been friends with the average American kid, I guess.
Do you still keep in contact with some of those?
Yeah, I do actually, thanks to a good old friend Facebook. Yeah, so I'm still able to keep in contact with a lot of my old friends.
I know you're a really strong advocate of your political party, the Golden Party, but you do talk a lot about straying away from partisanship and stuff like that. How do you think that relates to your advocacy for that party?
I certainly think that you can support a party without being extremely partisan. I think the problem with partisanship in real world politics is it prevents compromise. I don't think the Golden Party, or any of the parties for that matter, and this is one of my big criticisms of the party system in general, is that they don't necessarily affect the legislative branch of this program at all, when in real life they really do. Because depending on if you're a senator from the Democrats or Republicans, your views are going to be very different. But if you're a youth senator from the Wolfpack or the Golden Party, it doesn't necessarily mean that your views are going to be very contradictory. So I think that within our party system, we need to have more effect on the legislative branch of this program so that you can actually make a choice. What makes youth in government interesting and politics in real life interesting is making a choice where it's you can choose to vote for one governor candidate because he'll give you a certain type of youth in government experience next year, or you can choose to vote for another one because he'll give you a completely different kind of youth in government experience. And it's in the same way that you should have to pick one party because it'll give you one type of youth in government experience, or pick an opposing party because it'll give you a completely different type of experience. But I think right now it's very ambiguous as to what effect the parties will really have on your youth and government experience. Right now, I think they're just a good time, like you have a good time in the party and that's about it. So I think that certainly needs reform, or if not reform, a little more development, considering it's kind of like a fledgling part of this program.
Party and your very own golden party.
I think it's fun. I think that the Wolfpack's done a great job of running the elections so far. They've run a lot of offices. But I certainly think that the Golden Party's platform and their issue basis is in a much healthier place for California. If we could spread the Golden ideals into real-world politics, I think they would be much more effective than, say, the Wolfpack ideals. Because I understand that there's a huge base of youth and government delegates who are extremely liberal, and by all means that's reasonable because it's understandable to be liberal, of course. It's more than justified because most of this world is liberal. However, I don't necessarily believe that a socialist type of platform is necessarily the best thing for California, especially in our current state, when we really need to be cutting down on expenditures and cutting down on the amount of money we're spending in terms of how much money the government is giving out to individuals and also how much money the government is spending to fund corporations and fund corporate entities. So what we really need to begin to do is impact or use more of the Golden approach, which is getting people who disagree with each other but aren't disagreeable and working to create more of a moderate platform stance where we have compromise in our real political world. Because as you can see even from our budget right now, where there was that ballot initiative, I believe it was Prop 25, which was passed, but don't go into that, which was passed, which said that by June 15th they had to pass a new budget, and right now we're really having trouble compromising between Democrats and Republicans as to what that budget is going to be. We need more compromise in the real world, and that's what Golden's trying to bring to the government.
With the many programs throughout the nation dedicated to youth, we can all agree that YNG gives its delegates a significant amount of trust. 2,300 teenagers are given access to the state capitol building, the streets of Sacramento, and our very own hotel rooms. Naturally, there would be a code of conduct upheld. But to what extent are we willing to reach to make sure those rules are kept? Today we'll take a closer look at what may be considered YMCA policy or an intrusion of our privacy. Is there an overall YNG policy regarding whether or not advisors may enter delegates' rooms?
Yes, there is. This policy stems from one of safety. Safety is the most important thing when dealing with delegates. So a lot of times that an advisor may have to go into a room. It's for the safety of the delegate. If the delegate is sick, if they're injured, that's the reason that they have to go in there.
Is it true that the deans carry breathalyzers?
That's the truth. It's absolutely the truth.
What's the general procedure used for incidents regarding alcohol or drug abuse?
The general incidents for kids or delegates that use alcohol is we don't send kids home. They send themselves home. We only facilitate that exit. When they choose to use alcohol, drugs, or an illegal substance, they're saying to themselves and the program that they want to leave. And so we help facilitate that. The code of conduct is enforced for safety. Our main purpose as deans is merely to ensure that the program continues.
After speaking to the lead dean, I decided to go straight to the delegates for the story.
It was 11:59, and all of the guys that were in our room were leaving, exiting our room. Right as they're all leaving, we were in ratio, the guys were leaving, a random advisor that wasn't from our delegation came up to us and says, "Is everyone in your room? You guys need to leave," and got really upset with us because the guys were leaving right at midnight. They freak out, like come into our room, call security, call our male advisors, start freaking out because they said that they had gone to the 2 doors down.
Advisors, they come in, like I see them maybe once or twice a day in my room, and then it's kind of like I know they're coming because it's med check or in the morning they have to tell us something. But no, advisors are usually very, very friendly. And they're pretty cool people, so I'm not really having a problem with privacy with them.
122 delegates, so 2 of our advisors will be doing Assembly, Senate, and lobbyists. 2 will do core, 2 will do NIC. 1 will be, so we have a certain group that we try and go see as often as possible.
And at nighttime, like, what's your method of checking with everyone, seeing if they're in their rooms?
Well, we're just kind of hanging out, you know. We have our duties, all advisors have duties, you have the elevator duty, you go to social events, but we just love to see our delegates having fun. And then at night, of course, we do the bed check. And we use it as a good time to just say, hey, how was your day? And then this is what you need to know for tomorrow. Like tomorrow night, we'll tell you about the friendship service tomorrow, the banquet, how to get ready for that, et cetera, et cetera. But we're more interested in just seeing you having fun. It's not so much that we want to be checking up on you.
I'm Alexa Liaco with Yline. Thanks for watching.